Hello everybody, it is I, Brian the Pirate, and in today's video I just wanted to give you a quick update or a rundown of all the things that are occurring this April, because if you are an action RPG enjoyer, well, you are going to be feasting this April, that's for sure. That's right, there is a plethora of gaming events, things occurring. There's also a little bit of controversy that I wanted to talk about a little bit. But otherwise, just my general excitement, what you can expect coming in the next few weeks, and of course, what I will be doing in the next few weeks. There's also been some slight timeline changes that some of you may not be aware of, so I'm here to provide you with that information. So let's start off with Last Epoch. Now, Last Epoch have announced they are doing the Tombs of the Erased. This is going to be Season 2 of Last Epoch, and you may be thinking, what's a season? I thought they called their things cycles. And you're right, they did. That was originally the naming convention, but it turns out they didn't like cycles as a term, and they're now going with seasons. I couldn't tell you the exact reason why. I assume it was probably for the benefit of non-English or non-native English speakers. And they're like, cycle? But I have a car, or something like that. I don't know. I just say things. But it's big news because Last Epoch hadn't done an update for nearly a year, at least a year. More than a year. The game released in February last year. Now we're getting our second cycle, now known as a season, in April 17th to be exact. Initially, it was going to be on April 2nd. However, something occurred, which I'll come back to later in the video, that has made them change the date. So on April 17th, we will be playing Tombs of the Erased, and we can expect quite a lot of things with it. It's been a year and they've been making a lot of updates. They're adding more crafting consumables, more crafting systems. We're getting a new system being added into the end game content, the monoliths. There's going to be ways to basically shortcut through dungeons and a whole plethora of other things. A Sentinel rework as well. I'm not going to go into too much detail about it now, mostly because we only know some vague details and there's still more coming out, I believe, on the 8th of April and on the 11th of April. They're going to be doing some like podcasts with other creators and going into greater detail. They've done some already. So my plan will be to, once we have all the information, I will make my usual video, like everything you need to know kind of thing about Season 2 of Last Epoch later. Which means if you haven't subscribed, you probably should, because then you will get that information spoon-fed to you by yours truly when the time occurs. But the short version is, it's going to be a lot. Basically, consider it like an expansion. You're essentially getting a free, full-blown expansion with a lot of really cool changes, some quality of life stuff, new uniques, new items, new mechanisms, systems, etc. and WASD. Now, as I mentioned, they actually changed the date. Initially, that was due to come out on the 2nd of April. The reason they have moved the date is because another game that I'm sure you're all fully aware of, Path of Exile 2, announced that on the 4th of April, they're doing 0.2.0, which is essentially the first league for Path of Exile 2. Now, this has caused a bit of a controversy, which, as I mentioned, I'll talk about later in the video. But what are we getting for 0.2.0? Probably quite a lot. We have been teased some things. What we know so far, we're at least getting the Huntress. I suspect we're probably going to get the Druid as well, but they've soft confirmed with the teaser trailer the Huntress, which means we'll be getting spears. They've confirmed that we'll be getting the third ascendancies for some of the classes that are already in the game. I believe they've teased the Merc, so the Merc's third class, and I believe we'll be getting the Warrior's third class as well. We don't know specifically what they are. They've just shown us some concept art. We know we're getting some new uniques. We're getting some changes to endgame content and towers. But like I said, they've only given us small teasers at the moment. There's going to be a full-fledged reveal on the 27th of March, which is usually about an hour or so of GGG just blasting our minds with content. So expect some pretty big things. As with Last Epoch, I will be compiling all of that info into one nice bite-sized video for you folks at home. Expect that after the 27th, but of course before the 4th of April. In case you weren't already aware, this will be a new league. This means an economy reset. You'll be starting fresh. So any of your characters that you've made in Path of Exile 2 so far, they get moved to like standard league, which you can still access. But then you've got this new league, Dawn of the Hunt, where no one will have any currency or established characters already. You have to start completely from scratch. And then that allows everyone to be on an even playing field, but also for GGG to introduce new mechanics, new systems and things, and especially during early access, allow them to properly get it tested by us who have got early access to the game. Now, the controversy, I want to talk about it very briefly. Now, obviously, being part of the action RPG community, being a fan of Last Epoch, being a fan of Path of Exile, and especially Path of Exile 2, I have been familiar with some of the discourse that occurred when GGG announced that they would be going live with 0.2.0 on the 4th of April, when Last Epoch had already announced that they were going to be going live with Tombs of the Erased on the 2nd of April. Most people were like, that sucks. But there were a handful of people who took it really, really personally and think that GGG did it on purpose in order to essentially sabotage the release of Season 2 of Last Epoch. My 2 cents on this is, I don't think it was done maliciously. I think there is quite obviously a overlap when it comes to Last Epoch players and Path of Exile 2 players. You know, like I said, there's definitely an overlap of people who like to play both those games. But I think if we're looking at this realistically, considering the size of the audience for Path of Exile 2, there is a gargantuan amount of people who play Path of Exile 2 that do not give a fuck about Last Epoch. So when the decision to go live on the 4th of April was made by GGG, I'm pretty sure it was with them in mind and just wanting to get the update out as soon as it was able to be put out. And it just happened to be that close to GGG's release of Season 2. Sorry, EHG's release of Season 2. Now, is there an argument to be made that it's still a bit sucky? Yeah, sure. Honestly, I would have preferred if GGG were like, you know what, let's let them have some time in the sun. But I don't feel like they're obligated to do that either, to be honest, and they've got to think about their players first, and I think that's what they've done here. I think if it was malicious, the best thing to have done in that case would have been to go before EHG went live with Last Epoch Season 2, and then that way they've already taken all the players in, and people are invested in PoE 2 and don't even check out Last Epoch at all. I don't want to dwell too much on this subject. Like, I just wanted to get that out there. I think if you're someone who thought GGG were doing this like maliciously, maybe take a step back and think, maybe it's not that deep, perhaps. Just some food for thought. Then on April 30th, this one's probably a little bit more niche for some of you. We've got No Rest for the Wicked. If you're not familiar with No Rest for the Wicked, it's an action RPG, but it's essentially a Souls-like with like town building, kind of like Settlers of Calgar actually in PoE 1. But they've taken the camera and put it at an isometric angle, and then it uses this like really nice painted art style, very similar to what you would have seen in Ori and the Blind Forest and the Will of the Wisps, which is the same developers as No Rest for the Wicked. They're coming out again with a massive update that's adding some new endgame content, is expanding on the campaign. I think we've only played, and I say I think because it's not been confirmed how much we've actually been given thus far, but we've got about a third of the campaign currently, and they're adding more of the campaign with this next update. We're getting new weapons, we're getting fist weapons or gauntlets, I believe they're calling them, so like knuckle dusters, bladed fist weapons, katars, things like that. I'm actually very, very excited about that. When the game first came into early access, did the first boss naked, so punched him to death, and actually became quite a big fan of the punching animations. They actually feel really, really smooth. So they're adding a bunch of weapons specifically for those punching animations, as well as like some drop kicks and some other cool shit. So I'm going to be maining that when that update comes out. They're also adding like new areas to places in the campaign or zones in the campaign that we've already explored. So even if you've played the earlier parts of the campaign before, there's still going to be some new, fresh things for you to find, even in the very, very early zones of the game, which I think is very, very cool. Now, I'm a big fan of No Rest for the Wicked. I think it's a very competent action RPG, even though the combat is a little more different feeling. If you're someone who likes like the loot grind and the build crafting and that sort of things that you would find in an action RPG, but you also really like the difficult combat of, say, like a Souls-like or a Elden Ring, things like that, then I would highly recommend checking out No Rest for the Wicked. It's not a live service game, or at least they I've actually asked the devs directly. I was like, do you intend on going live service? And they were like, it's an option, but nothing's procedurally generated. So it would feel weird as a live service, if you know what I mean. So even if you're just looking for a game that you make only 1 or 2 classes in and play 1 or 2 times, I think you're still going to get your money's worth because it's such a beautiful game and the experience itself is just very fulfilling. And of course, closer towards the date, I will once again be making a dedicated video for it that gives you a proper rundown of what the new things are that are coming to the game, because I expect we'll be getting more information in the coming weeks anyway. An honorable mention also goes to the first Berserker Kazan. That comes out at the end of April as well. I'm probably not going to be playing that one immediately because my main focus is like traditional action RPGs, the live service ones. But I'm going to be playing that game. I played the demo. I actually really enjoyed it. Again, if you're into your more action adventure games like Black Myth Wukong, God of War, etc., Souls-likes and such, then I would check that game out, especially if you're a bit of a weeb like me. I'm an anime enjoyer, all right? We all have our guilty pleasures. But at some point, I'm going to be playing that game. What I'm actually going to be doing throughout April, I'm going to be dedicating some time to, of course, Path of Exile on the 4th. I actually get a new tattoo on April 5th because I'm brilliant at timing things, apparently. It's going to be a hand tattoo. It's going to be like my hand and forearm. So I'm going to be trying out Controller for the first time with Path of Exile 2. I've heard it's pretty good. So I've got a brand new shiny controller, actually. It's this beast here. A Games Cyclone 2, if anyone is wondering. And I'm going to see what the controller experience is like, because that will enable me to not basically fuck up my tattoo and give you guys a somewhat review, I suppose, on what it's like to play Path of Exile 2 on a controller. We'll see. Then, after 2 weeks, it'll be Last Epoch. I'll probably be playing Last Epoch for a good week or so. I usually make a few builds during a new season, etc. I don't tend to play it as long as I would a Path of Exile game, mostly because there's not as much content yet. But I definitely intend on deep diving a lot of the new stuff and getting videos out for you guys. And then, of course, when No Rest for the Wicked comes out, I'll be easily dedicating at least a week to that. Live on twitch.tv/Brian the Pirate. If you didn't know, I'm a streamer as well. You should come by. So if that's something that you'd like to do, then, you know, you should go over to my Twitch and hit the follow button and ding the notification bell. Likewise, probably subscribe if you haven't already. Ding the notification bell. And you'll get to see all the videos that I pump out semi-regularly. We're not going to talk about it. I can also be found on social media, and I have a Discord, all that shenanigans. Check it out in the video description. Until next time, thank you all very much for watching. Farewell. I'll remember you.